Hello. Today I'm going to show you how to use NoodleTools to cite some of the websites that you might encounter during the research process. And in the interest of time, I've actually gone ahead and done the searching part and found the sources that I'm going to use to model this, which you'll see in the other tabs. So I'm kind of skipping the part where I'm evaluating sources and moving right to these are the sources I want to use. How do I put them in? So we're going to start with a basic website. So the topic I'm going to be working with is actually a topic from one of my student sample papers about why women don't stay in STEM fields after they study STEM in college. And I'm using a lot of the sources that she put in her work cited to model this for you. So this was a basic website article that she found from MIT News. We might be tempted to think this is an academic journal, but it's not. This is a website, in part because it's published on the web, and it's not part of a periodical or other scholarly journal. And there are a few different clues that we have that help us figure this out. And a lot of it has to do with this information right here and the fact that it's not giving us information about volume, issue. There's no other title for the journal. This is a more traditional, just a website article. It could be published anytime. For more information on the differences between periodicals and non-periodicals, watch the types of sources overview video. All right, so once I have the site and the source, the first thing I'm going to do is copy the link because I'm going to want to put that into NoodleTools. When I get to NoodleTools, I'm going to click on the Sources tab, and I'm going to create a new source citation. The first thing NoodleTools is going to ask you is how you got this source. Where did you find it? And we already know that we were just searching through Google, searching on the web, so we have a website. Then they're going to ask you, okay, well, what did you find on the web? And this part may be overwhelming, but 9 times out of 10, you're just citing a regular old web page. So don't get overwhelmed by the choices and overthink it unless you have evidence that shows it's not in fact one of these things. Just choose web page. And then the fields that you need to cite it correctly are going to pop up. The first thing they're going to ask for is the URL, which is why I already copied it. The nice thing about putting URLs into your NoodleTools account is that anytime you want to go back to that source, you don't have to put your search terms in again or find it again. That link is going to be saved in NoodleTools and you can get to it easily. Any project that you've shared with me, I can also get to the source easily. So I want you to be putting your URLs into your NoodleTools. The date of publication, most web pages are going to have that somewhere on the top below the title. If you don't see it here, you're going to scroll to the bottom of the page and look for that information there. But we do have publication date information right here under the title. So I'm going to plug that in, June 15th, 2016. And I always pop in today as the most recent date of access. You might go back and look at it later in the project, but you don't have to keep changing the date of access. That could become overwhelming. The contributors to the web page. What we really want to see is just an author. The author information is the most helpful information, both for citations and for evaluating the credibility of your source. You always want to know who created this, what is their area of expertise. So I'm actually going to copy his last name because it looks like something that might be hard for me to remember how to spell. And I'm going to plug it into the last name field. He's the author. His first name I remember is Peter. Let's double check. We don't have a middle initial, so I don't have to fill that in. I only have one author, so I don't need to add a contributor. Web page or document / article title. That's the title of the page or the article. Why do women leave engineering? You don't need to put the subtitle in, just the main title. And I'm going to copy and paste it so I can show you something. I figure most of you are going to copy paste. It's really important to understand that a lot of websites and even newspapers have different formatting rules than we have in MLA. And so you can copy and paste it, but you need to follow the MLA rules, which stipulate that you need to capitalize all major words in a title. So that's basically everything except articles, conjunctions, and prepositions. One of the things I love about NoodleTools is that it often tells me when I'm doing something wrong. It gives me this little caution sign, which says, hey, you're about to make a mistake. So I can read the suggestion and it tells me what that mistake is. The first letter of the words listed here should most likely be capitalized unless they are in a language other than English. And that is the MLA rule. So I'm going to capitalize those. I always hear students, when I try to correct this error, they say, oh, but that's what it looked like in the original. And then I say, okay, well, you're wrong. Because the MLA rule is that you have to capitalize it. That's not the rule for whatever style they're using on this website. So I have to change my format to follow the MLA rules. You don't need to worry about English translation because this is already in English. Now I need to put in the name of the website, which is a couple of ways to find. Usually it's at the top right here. MIT News is what I'm going to say the title of the website is. We can also help start to figure this out if we look at the URL, news.mit.edu. That is the basic web homepage address. But again, that's not the actual title of the web page. The title of the web page is usually going to be in the upper left-hand corner. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to type in MIT News. And again, the same capitalization rules apply. Publisher of the site. This is usually on the bottom beside a copyright date, which is exactly what we have here. And then this one, I do actually have a slightly different publisher than I do for the title, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So that's what I'm going to put in. Oops, I need to capitalize. And because the name of the website is a little different from the name of the publisher, I do need to put the publisher name in. I'm going to show you in a few minutes how when the name of the website and the publisher are the same, you don't have to include the publisher. As far as contributors to the site as a whole, we could spend some time looking around and trying to find that, but when we have an author for the article and we're really just looking at the article, we don't need that information. This is really only necessary when we don't have an author for a post or when we're using a website at large rather than a specific article on the website. So I don't need that information. I also don't need to include an edition, version, or revision. So I'm done. I'm going to save. And now I have my citation properly formatted. Thank you, NoodleTools. And as I was saying before, now anytime I want to see that source, the URL is saved here and I can just go back to it. Okay, let's take a look at another common type of source that you're going to use, New York Times articles. Even though the New York Times is a newspaper, anytime that you are citing from the New York Times website, you're going to cite it as a web page. And this has to do with the periodical versus non-periodical distinction again. A periodical is something that is published at a regular interval, meaning it comes out every day, like a newspaper. It comes out every week, like a magazine. It comes out every 3 months, like an academic journal. But the New York Times website is continually updated. It's not a regular interval. So we are going to cite this as a website instead of a newspaper. And guess what? Good news, that actually makes your life easier. There's a little bit less information that you need to include. So I got it from a Google search, from a website, and I'm going to cite it as a web page. Again, I need to pop in my URL. Publication information right underneath the author's name, November 20th. Today is my most recent date of access. Contributors, New York Times almost always has authors unless it's an editorial, but that's a different story. Celestine, again, I'm going to copy the last name because I might forget how to spell it. Let's check if she has a middle initial. Nope, not published. And she's the author. She's the only author, so I don't need to add a contributor. Web page or article title. I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to double check that the capitalization is correct. NoodleTools isn't yelling at me, which is a good sign. I'm also going to double check. My main word, there's a preposition. I don't need to capitalize prepositions. Another preposition, I don't need to capitalize that. So we're good there. Name of the website, we know this already, but just to double check at the top, we know it's, always double check you've spelled things correctly. Publisher of the site. Now I've cited a lot of New York Times articles, so I know this, but I want to show you. If I go to the bottom, all the way down, 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 copyright date, 2020, the New York Times Company. So even though the word company is in the publisher, it's not different enough that it requires me to cite the name of the publisher here. It's basically still the New York Times. So since the name of the website is the same as the publisher, I do not have to include that here. In terms of contributors to the site as a whole, if you poke around on here, you're going to find a crazy page with a ton of names of contributors. You don't need that. It's not necessary. This is just a New York Times article. All we need to know really is who wrote it, what the title is, and where you got it from. So you don't need to fill that in either. Because we're looking at a website, I don't need to worry about the edition, version, or revision. That would be important if I were citing a newspaper, but I'm not. So I'm done. Source to in. Next, I have an NPR recording. And there are a couple of ways to do this. You could listen to it and you can cite it as a sound file. What I might do though, because I have the transcript, and transcripts are a little bit easier to work with in citations, I'm not going to cite it as the audio. I'm going to cite it as a website transcript. So let's see if I can find that. Sources, new source. It is a website. Let's see. I'm looking to see if there's a form that's specific for audio transcript. But if there's not, then I'm just going to cite this as a web page. I don't think it's necessary to overcomplicate things because I wasn't actually listening to the recording. I'm not seeing one. Radio program, let's see. This isn't allowing me to, oh, I am citing a transcript. I'm still going to call this a web page article because I don't have enough evidence here. I could listen to it and find out, but I don't have enough here that tells me that I'm specifically looking at a transcript. I could listen to it, but I'm just going to go with a website article. So again, copy. I'm going to go back to my sources. I'm going to start that one over. Website, web page, URL, date, December 16th. Today, I do have an author. I remember Elizabeth Blair. Again, only one author. If you have more than one author, you click Add Contributor and you put all the names in, all of them. This is called, I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm going to proofread it. This is telling me I don't need to capitalize the. I don't want to capitalize to. I'm going to leave the quotation marks around where it says Hidden Figures because that's a reference to the book and film Hidden Figures, and so it's kind of an embedded citation for that. Double checking the rest of it, that looks good. Name of the website is NPR. And the publisher is NPR. Again, always look by the copyright date to find the publisher. I don't need that. I don't need editor. I'm done. All right, and the last one, I want to show you how to do it when it pops up as a PDF. So I put into Google Scholar the title of this article just so you could see what happens when I click on it. There are a few different ways to get to this article. This one is giving me the abstract, and it's going to probably charge me for getting the full article. Let's see what happens when I click this. Yeah, it's not going to let me do it. But if you keep looking, sometimes you can find the articles published somewhere else. So I'm going to go back to my search, and I'm going to click here. And I have a, well, I'm supposed to have a PDF. I want the PDF. This one? There we go. That's the right one. Okay. So this is a PDF of the journal article, which is basically exactly what I want. It's going to be the full article. It has all the citation information that I need. And so even though it's a PDF, we're still going to cite this as website. But now instead of web page, I'm going to cite it as a journal. And how did I know that? Some of the clues, which I'll talk about more in the videos on different types of sources. But part of it's the fact when I look at this page, it says Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. And so that information, it just right there told me it's a journal. Another clue is the fact that I have an volume and issue numbers. That's a way of telling me that I have an academic journal. And I'm going to cite it as it appears here. So you'll notice the title of the journal, Attitudes and Social Cognition, is a little different from the title here. But because this is the one I'm using, this is the one I'm going to cite. So I'm going to cut to the chase a little bit. I'm going to copy and paste my URL. Date of access. It says name of container website rarely included. So I'm not going to include it. Then I do need to put all the authors in. I'm just going to show you the first two. You need to put all of them in, but I want to save a little bit of time in the video because it's already getting kind of long. Gregory M. Walton. So I'll do the first two just so you can see how that works. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do three because I want you to see what happens when you have more than two contributors. I'm going to do Amy Bell, just again, in the interest of time. The article title is, let's see if this will copy and paste nicely. It did, but NoodleTools is telling me to fix something with preposition lowercase. So is among. Okay, pages. Do I have pages? Yes. 1089 through, let's just scroll to the bottom. $11.03. The journal article that this appears in, according to this PDF, is called Attitudes and Social Cognition. Volume and series number. Let's see. Oh, actually, Right down here, it's giving me Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. So I'm going to go back and use that. Sorry for the confusion. It could be that this attitudes and social cognition is just that type that I misunderstood that, and that is like a subheading for like a series in the journal. So this information here is really what I want. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it more clearly. This is giving me the publication information I need. In fact, they gave me page numbers. I didn't even have to scroll up and down. So I'm going to look here at the volume and issue. The volume is the first number, 96. No, NO stands for number, so it's volume 96, number 6. They didn't give me a month and season. I just have a year, I believe, 2009. I don't have I don't have the information for a series, so I think I'm done. That's what it looks like there. And if I try to get into it, it takes me back to the PDF. I wanted to put in 3 names so you see this. When you're citing an MLA and you have more than 2 authors, it's going to become et al., which means and others. So if that happens, that to yours, because you're put in 3 or more authors, just know that that's correct, that you're not wrong. NoodleTools knows what it's doing. You need to know what you're doing a little bit, but NoodleTools does pretty much know what it's doing. So if you enter in 3 or more authors, it's going to convert it to et al., and just know that you're doing the right thing. All right, that's all for citing websites. Stay tuned for part 2, which will cover citing databases.